Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Grow with InVideo, where every week we get one member of the community to come and sit with us so we can pick their brains and bring you a blueprint that you can apply for your businesses and brands. Right? My name's Abhilash. I lead the community here at InVideo. I know a lot of you guys probably already know me. And if you don't know me, unfortunately, I'm your host for today and for most of these episodes right? So today we've got a very special guest with us. We've got Amy Caiger in the house. Now, she's a recent addition to the community, and I've also actually only recently gotten to know her. But what really caught my eye and my interest when I look at Amy and when I look at her website was what she's an expert at, which is helping brands and businesses and individuals identify their niche for today. And given the entire pandemic situation, it's become more relevant than ever for you to do that, right? So that you can survive this situation and you can also end up fending off whatever competition you could have, right? So without further ado, I'm going to get Amy into the live stream. Hey Amy,
Hello.
how have you been?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Good, good, good. I see that you have an amazing background full of books. Definitely better than the one that I have, which is just a plain Bible.
I've
But
got quite a lot going on, but maybe too much
yeah,
going on.
yeah. I could kill for a bookstore, a bookshelf right now, but just given the current situation in India right now, it's just incredibly difficult to get someone to come and do that. But as soon as things open up, that's one of the first things that's on my agenda. But Amy, I have told everyone about what it is that you do, and how we basically even got to know each other, right? But do you want to tell everyone a bit about where you're coming from? What is it that you've done so far? What is your current go-to business right now, and what do you help people with?
Yeah, so as you've said, my name's Amy Caiger, and I help freelancers and service-based businesses in particular get clear on their niche, and I like to call it unleash their niche. And what that means is I help them find that special thing, the thing that makes them different to everybody else, and then how they can amplify that and communicate that in everything that they do so that they can stand out. They can attract more of their A-list customers, that I like to call them, so that perfect customer, that right customer that they want to work with, and they can position themselves as that go-to person, which, as I think, is standing out and being seen as the go-to is really important. Kind of cutting through that noise online.
Yep. So I couldn't agree more. I think that everyone wants to stand out, right? But I'm going to address the elephant in the room, right? When I first heard about the fact that you're an expert who helps people do that, the usual myth and the usual apprehension is that when you niche down, you basically lose out on some of your potential customers. You are kind of narrowing you're narrowing your audience set down, right? Which could have repercussions on your bottom line. But I know that basis whatever we've spoken, that is not true. So could you just let us know a bit about what exactly encompasses identifying your niche, firstly, and secondly, what does it not encompass, right? Because I think there's a lot of confusion and there's a lot of misunderstanding around what does it actually mean to niche down.
Absolutely, and it is. There's quite a few myths surrounding niching. Finding your niche. And I think, well, I'll go, because as you've already brought one up, I'll do what it's not to start with, then I'll say what it is. So yeah, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't be making anything up. That's the thing. You shouldn't be just being specific for specificness's sake. You shouldn't
Got
just
it.
be saying, oh God, I need a niche. What can it be? You nearly got me saying niche then. A niche. Like, what can it be? I have to make something up, because that is when there could be problems and you might lose customers, because it's not something that's already happening in your business. What it should be made upon is what is working in your business, and focusing more on those elements and
Got it.
clearer on those, so you can get clear on your messaging and all those sorts of things. What it's also not is your customer. So to have a niche doesn't mean that you have to have a super pinpointed customer. Yes, that is an element to it, but it doesn't mean it has to just be that, because people get very worried about, oh, but I work with all sorts of different people, or I like working with all sorts of different people. That's not the case. So it doesn't have to be that either. So what is it then? So thinking about your niche as that thing that makes you different. So every business needs to have something, whether you call it like a USP, or, if you kind of know the marketing lingo, or something that just makes you stand out and is different. It's the reason why someone will choose you over somebody else. And this is really important, because if you don't have this element and you're just the same as everyone else, and there's nothing that makes, if there was 4 of you and someone was trying to choose out of whatever it is that you do for your business, and there's nothing different, then it will come down to things like price, and it'll be whoever's cheapest. And that's not a situation that you want to be in with your business, to just be the cheapest, because that's just a really bad place to be in. So it's thinking about what makes you different. And there's 3 elements that you can think about that make up a really strong niche. And the first one is your customer. So that is an element, but it's not the only one. It can also be what you do. So maybe you do things a little bit different, or you have, your own kind of IP, like you kind of think about things in a different way, or have a different way of expressing your thoughts on the particular topic. Or it can be you. And this is a really good place to start if you are maybe newer to your business, and you're still finding your feet when it comes to who your customers might be, or what you do. You might not know what your special slant is, your angle of it is quite yet. But you are an element of your business, especially if you are more of a personal brand. You are really important. So there's elements of you that can be really different. So how, just your personality, how you come across will make you stand out compared to somebody else. So they're the 3 main elements you should be thinking about. But the key is to think, what makes you different, not how can I be specific. That's when things can go wrong. And that's when people try to jump stages, or they try and make things up, is when the fear comes in. Because there shouldn't be any fear surrounding it, because you should only be doing like what is working in your business, and kind of narrowing down on those aspects, not using things just because.
Got it. But so if I understand this correctly, it almost does not come from identifying your target market first, or just, going super narrow in terms of when you're starting out, right? It's more about you start off by catering to the entire world, and as you go down and as you spend more and more time, you identify one set of people who are a lot more apt to be your ideal customer, right? Or to be the ideal person that you would want to cater to. And then you basically double down on that, and then you tweak everything that you do to kind of cater to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about tweaking. But you said something there about you should start off appealing to everyone in the world. That's not the case. You shouldn't be doing that, because if you try to appeal to everybody, you'll end up appealing to nobody. So where I say you don't have to have a specific customer, that's in terms of maybe more of an avatar, like a demographic. And if you have one, that's absolutely great. And if you look at who your clients have been, and they all seem to be accountants, for example, then great, go for it and say you help accountants, and use all the language and messaging and everything that's geared towards accountants. But if you have got all sorts of different people, then the thing you should be really, really thinking about is what that problem is that they have, and what transformation do they want, or where do they want to be once that problem's gone. So that's the thing you need to be really, really clear of. And that's really important in your business anyway. But it might be that the problem, or the pain point that people call it, is the thing that joins them all together, is the common denominator in all your clients. So therefore, that's what you focus on when it comes to your messaging. That's the thing you need to be really clear on. And then it doesn't matter if they are, say, accountancy, or a graphic designer, or they're a woman in her 30s, or they're a man in his 50s. That doesn't matter as much. If you have a big mix of people, it's that problem that you're solving is the thing to be really, really thinking about.
So that's where you start from. So if I understand this correctly, narrowing down and kind of focusing your attention on one set of target audience is actually not the cause. Is not the cause. It's actually more of an outcome. It's a byproduct of you wanting to double down on solving one problem statement at a time, right? So most people kind of look at that outcome and they feel like that is essentially what they're supposed to do, whereas that is just, it kind of becomes like a de facto product of you just narrowing down your focus. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's getting, yeah, as you said, it's tweaking, it's getting clearer, and each time you'll get clearer and clearer, because what you want is you want your customer to be like, oh my God, I really need this person, this business. This is the one for me. They're reading my mind. They really understand me. They clearly know, they'll be able to help me the most. So it's thinking about those elements, and it's, if you start from a place of what problems am I solving, and then you find that a certain person is attracted to you, that maybe with those other elements, like they're attracted to, how you do things, how you come across, all those elements that I spoke about earlier, then you can then go, okay, wait a minute. I'll just have a bit of a review. What is happening? Okay, this type of client seems to be the person that keeps coming to me. So I'll just tweak things a little bit to make it even more relevant to them. And then it might, like, that person might become a bit stronger and you might understand them a bit more. So then you can tweak your messaging that little bit more as well, and a little bit more as well. And then that can form part, say, of your niche when you know more about that person, because that's the aim. Just because it's not, as I was saying, it's not because your business is specific that it's able to grow. It's because your messaging is hitting home and resonating that so much more. So that's why you can grow your business by having a niche, or niching down, as people say. It's because it's become much more relevant and resonates more, rather than it's just because it's specific. I can't say it now. Specific. So that's the kind of things to think about there.
Got it. So it's more of you identifying what you want to do. We've got company on the live stream today. Yeah, but it's more about you identifying what will really make things tick with your audience set, and then basically making all of those changes in terms of communication, in terms of how they perceive you, so that you can basically double down on your revenue. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's why it should be something that you're working on, something that's working, because it's like, okay, let's tweak this and do more of it, because we'll hopefully get more of those customers then, because if we're appealing to some, we can appeal to more of those people. That's the thing. It's not where people say, oh, I'll be losing people over here. It's like, yeah, but you'll be getting more of these people that you're putting the effort and the focus in. And it's, it starts to impact everything you do. If you've got focus, and that's what a niche is as well, it's having focus for your business, for yourself. So you know what content you should be providing, what programs or services you can provide. It's all those elements, everything you do in your business, it impacts all of that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so I obviously have a slightly better understanding about what it means to niche down now. How do you arrive at that decision? Like, how do you arrive at the fact that, okay, this is basically, what I'm going to define as my niche? Obviously, we start with the problem, as you've said. That's actually a great place to start, wherein you kind of focus heavily on the problem that you can solve for a particular audience set. But are there more steps to it? Because I'm assuming it won't be that simple.
Yeah, that's one of the steps. So the best thing to do is to start off thinking, what makes you different? As I was saying, there needs to be something that you are doing differently to everybody else. So that's a really good place to start. Just think generally about your business. What makes you different from your competitors or other people doing similar things in your industry? So that's a good place to start. The second one, as I've mentioned before, is looking at what's already happening in your business. What areas are working really well? What type of people do you seem to be attracting? What services seem to be more popular? If you offer a range of services, maybe it's thinking, okay, I offer 4 different services, but actually only 2 of them seem to be the ones that people are coming to me more, or actually I only had one person go for one of them. So it, having a look at what is there, and also thinking about what you're drawn to as well, because that's really important, especially as we've got our own businesses. We want to do something that we enjoy doing, and that's totally relevant as well, because we get drawn to certain things and we might not want to do certain elements of our business anymore. We've had experience of doing these things. We might go, do you know what, I don't need to do that anymore. And then so it's thinking about like what you do and then how you do that differently as well. So whether that could be your services, how you do things a bit different. So it might be that you say focus on a certain element. So you might cut out some services, you might only offer one, or just how you go about providing that service might be different to what other people do in your industry. So you're standing out and you're doing something a little bit different. So we've looked at had a general think about how you do things differently to your competitors. We've looked at what's going on in the business, and then have a look at what you do. How do you do things? How is that going to make you seem different or stand out? And then we look at the client, which we've spoken about already. And then you can look at yourself as well. So what makes you different and special and makes you stand out? So it's thinking about key elements of your personality that maybe you want to amplify. So how I like to speak about, because people kind of get a bit worried then about, oh God, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to show up all the time. Yeah. I don't want to air my dirty laundry. But it's not about that. It's thinking about, I like to have a 80-20 rule, which I heard somewhere. I can't remember where I heard it, that have 20% of what makes you you and amplify it so people think it's 80% of what makes you you.
Got it.
So it's picking some key elements. So it might be something of your personality. It might be something that you like to, your likes and dislikes. It might be your values, things like that. It might be that you amplify things, if you've got a particular accent or you're from a certain place, or you kind of make more of that. Just so it's something that, people get hold of and remember, and, how you dress or whatever, things that people remind, so you become recognizable and people remember you because of these things. So they're the elements to think about. And then it's thinking about, okay, now I've got clearer on it. I've, got a bit of an idea. It's how do you then communicate that? Because that is a really, really important step. It doesn't, kind of start and finish with getting clear yourself. It's okay, how can I communicate that in a really clear way?
Yeah.
How can I talk about that?
And
yeah, absolutely. So then it's okay, then how can I get everything in my business aligned so everything is saying the same thing, so it's really strong, no matter where someone comes across me, everything's aligned, that it will be the same things that they're picking up on, and it just gets really strong. So they're the things to be thinking about. And the things to remember as well is a niche can be tweaked. It can be done in stages. Once it's done, doesn't mean that, it's set in stone. You can't tweak things again or adapt things slightly, which I know is another thing people worry about a lot. That they kind of, oh God, but what happens if it doesn't work? I want to do something different. And it's like, that is okay. But say you should be, the fact that you are doing things that are working shouldn't mean that it's a crazy big jump and a leap and you're kind of putting all your eggs in a basket. So it's remembering those things as well.
Got it. I actually had a question that is kind of a detour from this, but it's kind of relevant, which is that how do you actually arrive at your A-lister customers, or your A-lister clientele? Because I think what a large chunk of what you've just said is that the objective of doing this entire exercise is that you can identify your best lot of customers, or your best audience, right, that you would love to have, and at the same time they also make this entire venture profitable, of sorts for you, right? From an ROI, from a revenue perspective. So that's your sweet spot, right? Now, how do you basically go and find that? Is it more of a trial and error setup, wherein as in when you spend more and more time, you will basically keep narrowing down on that particular audience set? Or is it that you actually do a lot of homework and audience research right in the beginning and kind of go with an already, slightly narrowed audience set, and then you narrow it down further?
Absolutely. I mean, research is really important, especially when your customer is involved. So I do recommend that you try and find out as much as you possibly can about your client and getting clear on that problem that I was talking about earlier. So whether that's directly talking to people and thinking, okay, they seem like they might be a potential client, I'll try and speak to them, and getting them on the phone and actually having a conversation with them is a really good thing to do, even though it might be scary. But that way you can actually listen to them and actually hear what they're saying and the language they use to describe their problems, and if there's any phrases that keep coming up. So it's so that's a really good place to get a really good info. Or it might just be looking in Facebook groups and seeing when people are typing their questions and their problems, looking at and seeing what they're saying with that. So yeah, starting with research is a really good place, and it's something you should be doing all the time as well. Even if you're really established in business and you think your customer, or you do know your customer really well, it's something that's, as I say, you should be doing or thinking about doing really, really regularly in your business. But in terms of thinking about who that client is, so it's looking to see who does seem to be attracted to you. So if you are new to business, if you are kind of haven't had any clients yet, it's not to worry too much. It's to focus on that problem, but to kind of work with as many people as possible, because you're only going to know when you've kind of started to work with people who are the people that are going to be those right clients and who are attracted to you. And then it's thinking about, who did you like working with? Were there any particular people, and why was that? And then on the flip side, who did you not like working with? Because that's really important as well, because there might be certain elements that that just didn't work out for whatever reason. It might be that working with particular people or businesses you didn't feel comfortable with because maybe your experience, or maybe you didn't feel as confident in certain aspects of working with them, rather than necessarily that was a horrible person or whatever. But it's thinking about those things, like why did you not like working with them? And then it's thinking about who you would love to work with, and whether that could be people you're already working with, or maybe it is someone who maybe you're not working with quite yet. And that's different to making things up. So we still don't want to make things up. But if if you want to take your business to another level, or you want to position yourself slightly differently, then those are the things that you can be thinking about. So I think, okay, I can maybe tailor stuff that's going to attract that person a little bit more. And then it's thinking about who you give the most value to. So this is a really important thing to be thinking about as well, because you may feel that you give a certain type of person more value than others, or it might be, say, with the services that you offer, things like that. So that's a really, really key point of thinking, who is this person, getting a bit of an idea. And you'll notice I haven't said anything about demographics. I haven't said, what age are they, or what car do they drive, or what things like that. And I know that can be helpful in certain elements, if you're going to do collaborations or things like that, or you're looking for particular adverts, like if you're doing Facebook ads, as getting an idea of getting the messaging right, those things don't matter, or they're not as important. So it's not to get hung up on those, but to think about, as I was saying, that problem and that transformation. Where do they want to be? Where are they now with whatever that problem is they're having, or that pain, or that thing, that they don't want, or they do want in their life, and where do they want to be? They're the main things to be thinking about. So that should give you then a nice idea of who that person is, and that's when you can start tailoring things to that person. So everything, like with your content, your website copy, anything that you're doing in your business, you can think, okay, is it speaking to that person? Is it talking about those pain points? Is it answering those in some way? Is it going to resonate with those things?
Got it. Got it. So, as an example, and this is what I love doing, right? I'm actually going to just pick an example for every portion that we cover or every tenet that we cover. I think a great example in this case is that I'm going to talk about InVideo strictly here because that's one brand or one business that I understand, right? And for us, when we set out, and if let's say we want to niche down, and right now we're not, we aren't doing that because the use cases that we have are pretty broad. But even within them, so that's exactly what I think you meant, where you said that okay, it's not about actually cutting out customers, but it's about making sure that can you actually tweak your communication and can you become like the person that they would be able to relate to if they were to come to your website or if they were to talk to you, right? And how we've identified that is that we've actually identified about 3 or 4 major categories of people or major problem statements or use cases that we solve really well, and we've identified 3 or 4 that we don't solve at this point in time, right? And that's it. So for example, subtitling is not something that we ideally solve for, right? So a lot of people on the community kind of come to us and ask us about that, and we actually outright tell them that hey, we might not be the best platform as of today. We could be there in another 2 months, depending on what we're building. But on the other hand, what this knowledge empowers us to do is all of our communication, all of our positioning, how I, kind of talk about in video when I'm talking to a creator, or how we write our ads, everything basically derives from the fact that we are catering to these 3 or 4 major use cases, and we want to continue doing that, right? And because we have that clarity, there's so much depth that has come with it, right? Wherein, so a simple use case on the lines of drop shippers, right? The fact that we cater to drop shippers and we are basically their go-to product for creating Facebook ads, right? We've identified that use case, and we know exactly the pain points that they have, which is that they need to keep iterating. For example, they need scale. They don't have the bandwidth of putting in a lot of time and effort behind every ad. So these are things that you realize when you start narrowing down your focus. And once that happens, for us in this case, niching down just meant that we will cater all of our communication, and we'll kind of give them a custom experience wherein they almost feel like InVideo is a product that is made for dropshippers, right? And to a large extent, we have done that, wherein we've got dedicated landing pages. We've got, we work with creators who are the best in that space, who kind of talk openly about InVideo, right? All of that kind of stems from the fact that, hey, this is a very, very good use case. And B, this particular audience set also has the ability to spend with us, right? They want to basically, they're open to the idea of actually getting on a subscription with us because it's solving a major bottleneck for them, right? Does that more or less sound like an example of what niching down would be in the real world?
Yeah. So it's thinking about, as you've said, you've pointed out that certain people seem to be attracted to you. So it's like, okay, how can we then go more into that? But it might be that you end up changing your business so you become the video platform for a particular type of business. And you go all into it. I know your business is obviously very big with all sorts of people all around the world, but that's the thing, you can kind of go, okay, yes, this is an angle that's where my business is headed. And say it's thinking about those 3 things, because a niche is basically where you say what makes you different, why someone would choose you, and your like little area, you've got your flag in the sand. And the thing is, when you are really clear on your niche, you end up not really having competitors in that same way because there's no one else like you. And that's where you want to be. And then so people are attracted to you, and then they become kind of fans of you because they like the fact that you have got this different thing, whatever that may be. Say out of those 3 things that I mentioned earlier. So which is for, I guess, people who have come on. So that's like who, like you. So sorry, I've just said 2 there. So you. So thinking about how you are different, how what you do is different, and also who your client is, how they are different. So it's thinking about those three elements in your business. So yeah, it's thinking about, okay, what is my little area? What's it going to be? What are we going to focus on? And as I say, if you've found that actually a certain type of person or this business seems to be attracted, then you can say decide that that's where you're going to go, and that's who you're going to target, and that's where you're going to make all the messaging all towards. So then that person will be, then you become that no-brainer choice for that type of business, because they're going to go, well, I can't, I don't even need to look anywhere else, because I know
this person gets the job done.
Businesses will have the answer for me. And that's kind of where you want to get with this. And say it's not about just being specific. It's actually, this makes you much more focused. It makes you able to resonate a lot more. So therefore, you are more attractive to your clients as well because of these elements.
Got it. So I'm going to move on to messaging here in like the next few seconds. But before that, I just wanted to say a quick hi to everyone who's joined in. So I see that we've got Sandy, who's just started using InVideo, and she says, she's just learning to get hands-on on the platform. Sandy, you're at the right place. The community is an amazing place for you to do that. So feel free to trouble us. Tag the other members in the community, and I'm sure they'd love to help you out. We've got Brigetti in the house. She's actually one of our very, very frequent users, and she's also someone who almost always tunes into our live streams. So thank you, Brigetti, for joining us. We've got Esther from France. So hi, Esther. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm hoping this ends up being useful for you. Okay, so Amy, we've covered two very important components of this, which is what is niching down and what it is not, and how do you identify your best audience set so that you can double down on them. Right now, this brings me to the next bit, which is once you've identified that A list of clients, how do you define your messaging and how do you make it more streamlined?
Okay, yeah. So messaging is really important because this is where you then start communicating what your niche is. So it's thinking about like who you help and how you help. So it's thinking about, say, what makes you different and thinking about those problems. So it's thinking about how your messaging can align with all of this. So everything is all pointing to the same direction, whether that is, say, how when someone arrives on your website, whether it's your content, everything is pointing in that same direction. And you asked me a question, I can't remember what it was. I know it was about messaging.
No,
you ask a question.
Yeah, it was about messaging. It was about how you can tailor make your messaging to best suit your niche audience.
Oh, that was it. It was tailoring. I was like, I knew you asked me like more of a specific question than just generally about messaging. So it's thinking about, it's making sure that everything's aligned. So once you're really clear on that problem, you can gear everything towards that, because you need to be, one thing you really do need to be is be really clear and concise as well. People tend to have a tendency when they're thinking about how they describe their business, maybe it's to someone at a networking where someone literally says, oh, what do you do? Or whether it is on your website or whether it's wherever else you might give an explanation of what your business is. People start thinking they need to add these words that are very flowery, that are very, they think, oh, to stand out, I need to make up words. I need to say I help people with their sparkle or something. And it's like, but actually no one knows what that means. And someone's sparkle will be different depending on who you speak to. So you do need to be really, really clear, and you need to get it so that people think, when they're reading, wherever they're coming across you, that they are thinking, oh my God, yes, they're reading my mind. They really get me. I am in the right place. That's an aim for, say, your website. You want someone to arrive on your website and be like, oh yes, I'm in the perfect place.
The right
person for me.
Got it.
So it's just making sure that
Got it.
everything is aligned and really clear. And the other thing is not to have maybe loads of different messages. You can have a few key ones that they're the things that you talk about all the time, that are important, things like that. But you don't need to have kind of reams and reams of all these different messages that you want to say. It's kind of keep it streamlined, keep it focus, so it's easy for you to say when you come up with content. So when you get an idea of what these messages are that you want to talk about, that what your niche is, what your business is about, what the identity is of your business, and those problems that you solve, then you can start saying, where did you go?
I have no idea what just happened, but
Okay.
sorry, I'm so glad that
It was a little bit off. I was like, okay, I'm here by myself now.
You're all by yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
But but as soon as people kind of understand these things, they kind of get ideas, say, for their content and things like that, and everything becomes aligned, and that just makes it really, really strong. If you've got just a few key messages that you talk about all the time, then it just emphasizes it and amplifies it when people come across you. Because
Right.
I think people sometimes get a bit like, well, I talk about this all the time, but you're the only person that sees all your stuff.
Yeah.
You see yourself like 24/7. You see everything you put out. You see every social media post you put out. You see every blog or video you put out. You see your website all the time. Other people don't. So you have lots of mixed messages or lots of different messages, then people aren't going to pick them out. So it's just to have just a few key things that are important, so that explains your niche really well as well, and you're answering those problems, which is an element of that, and just weave that into everything that you do.
So my two takeaways from what you've just said is that first, your messaging is derived again from a very, very clear, in-depth understanding of your audience, which again kind of is the reason why finding your niche is so important. Because the more focused you are on a particular audience set, the deeper you can get in terms of what problem statements they have, what are the exact sentence constructs that they kind of would use to describe their problems, right? How do they talk to each other, things like that, right? And that is exactly what you will have to do when you're trying to communicate with your audience, right?
I think you're cracking up a little bit. I think your internet's going a bit funny. I don't know whether that was just me.
Okay, is this better?
Yes, you're there. So I didn't know whether it was me or when.
No, so all a part and parcel of live streaming, right? This is essentially all of our worst nightmares coming true. But yeah, but my second takeaway actually was that it's also super important to be consistent with your messaging, right? So for example, the reason why you would want to define like a guidebook of sorts, right, or a messaging book wherein you just kind of have, or a small blurb where you have all of your power statements written, right, or all of your key messaging written. The reason why it becomes so important is everywhere that you go, any touch point that you have with your potential audience, you would want to kind of stick to that, right? And I am going to run through a couple of examples of people that I know do that. But before that, I wanted to, again, if we go down to the example of InVideo and how this pans out in our reference frame, then a simple example would be about how we refer to ourselves, right? We actually don't refer to ourselves as probably the easiest video creator in the world. We do say that sometimes, depending on who we are catering to, but more often than not, we would talk about ourselves as the most consumer centric company, or we talk about how we are probably the most loved video creation platform in the world. And the reason why we are so focused on that is because we want to talk about how we are actually anal about our end user, right? And we built that over a period of time, wherein anyone who's basically become a part of our community, or anyone who's interacted with our support teams, absolutely loves them, right? And they know the amount of effort that we put into kind of keeping that intact and making sure that there's never a point where come and try to reach out to someone from our team and no one will be available, right? So those are tenets that we kind of knew were working in our favor at that point in time, and it is also how we wanted to position ourselves, right? That's very sacrosanct to us, right? So when those two things came together, we said that until we discover another moat, right? Until we discover, another landmark, caveat that we can, then add to this list of features, right? We wouldn't want to talk about it, right? There's no point me making the claim that I'm the easiest video creator in the world when it's relative, right? Almost of sorts. Like one set of audience could find it like that, but another set couldn't, right? So I want to basically have covered and gained that kind of ground wherein I am hands down the easiest video creator in the world, and that's when I'd basically talk about it in that reference frame, right? So I think that's essentially what it comes down to when it comes to messaging, right? Once you identify that, you can actually kind of stick to that, and then whether I'm on a live stream when I'm talking to you right now, or if it's about interacting with people on the community and what we tolerate and what we don't tolerate, or it's about the ads that we write and what goes into that, right? All of it kind of unanimously communicates and says the same things, which is why it kind of also works in our favor. And when you repeat the same thing again and again and again, enough people retain that information and then pass it along, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing, it needs to be consistent everywhere. So whether someone's seen a Facebook ad from you, or they've seen then a social media post, or they've gone on your website, it needs to be saying the same things. Because if it was, if one was saying, the easiest platform, the other was saying most love, the other one was saying something else, you'd be like, is it the same thing, or what is that what I want? Or it just kind of starts to get a bit of confusion. And that's the thing, you need to be really clear, because as soon as someone isn't quite sure, that's when they won't make a decision, or they won't decide to follow you or buy from you or whatever. It's kind of building that trust as well, that you are consistent, you are who you say you are, kind of everywhere, wherever someone comes across you, like on a video, or say in a piece of copy where they can get your tone of voice, all those things. It's really important to be consistent and be the same everywhere.
Got it. Awesome. So I think we've arrived to the last leg of this entire journey, wherein you figured out your ideal target audience. You've also figured out what are their problem statements, basis which you derive your messaging, right? Now it comes down to how do you visually communicate it, right? How do you make it super effective? How do you basically bring it to life in the most visually appealing way possible, right? So do you want to talk a bit about building a visual identity? What does it go in terms of just doing that? What are the basic building blocks of a cohesive visual identity?
Absolutely. I mean, visuals are so important because they are a shortcut. They are a shortcut to all those things. Someone immediately picks up on something when they see you. So whether that's you as a person, your website, your social media posts, there's something they pick up, whether it's subconscious or whether it's something they've consciously thought of. Whereas if it's a piece of copy, someone has to start reading that. It takes a bit longer. So it's really important. And I think especially when you are a personal brand as well, where it is literally you that are going out, and you are the voice of the business, and you are the face of the business. It's really important to still think of the visuals and yourself. So anything that's visual, where someone, whether it is like colors and fonts, or whether it is actually physically a person that you see, it needs to all be aligned. And I think people do think of things like colors and fonts and how they show the business. Like, say if you want to be a fun business, or you want to be taken a bit more seriously, or your personality, you feel you're more of a green person because you love wearing green, or whatever, some element that you feel you want to have in your business. but sometimes people forget them as themselves are just as important as well. So they might have nice kind of colors and fonts and things that are, think of those when they're creating their graphics and things like that, which is really important as well, because graphics and fonts and colors are really, really important, especially if you're scrolling through Instagram, or you don't want to just blend in and be the same as everybody else. So it's really important to say, and they give that shorthand, that shortcut to getting that feeling of what your business is about. That set you as well. And people go about this in lots of different ways of how they can be recognizable, what makes them different. And it's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about how you are an important part of your niche, about how you are different. So it could be clothes that you wear, it could be your hair color. Lots of people have different, brightly colored hair colors. It could be glasses, or they always wear a hat, or, they have some kind of,
or they have a beard.
Thing that they always wear. They always wear suits, or things like that, because then it makes you recognizable. And then wherever someone might come across you, you are that same person. And it's really important to be consistent with that as well. And it's, remember, being consistent when you are visual as your business. When you're at home chilling out watching TV, you don't have to keep up that wardrobe or whatever. But whenever you are visually out with your business, so it's that consistency thing again. As soon as there's no consistency, or things don't quite add up or align, it makes things a bit confusing for people, or there's an element of doubt, or there's something. Whereas you appear the same everywhere you are. So if someone sees you on a video, or they see you in real life, they can recognize you. They know it's you. You are the same person. And I think, especially when it comes to clothes and things, celebrities are really good at this as well, aren't they? Where they have a particular look. So wherever you see them, it's them, and dress them for a fancy dress party or whatever. If you're dressed as, Amy Winehouse or whatever, everyone's going to know who you are. They're consistent with their look, and it is really, really important. Like, visuals are so important, because they are that shortcut. So it is something to really think about in your business. Whenever someone might come across you.
So I'd like to actually run a couple of examples through you, right, and kind of figure out how do you arrive at the visual identity for that particular niche, right? So for example, if we look at InVideo and who we cater to, right, and how our messaging is and what we want to be, right, how do you think one should arrive at their visual identity, more or less? Is it strongly derived from their messaging and who they want to be? And what are also the tactical building blocks? So for example, is it about if you just take the colors, the fonts, and probably the design, right, the framing of things, are those like three fairly good starting points to kind of kickstart things? Because I think that in itself brings a landmark of a difference, right, let alone doing other things like logos and things like that. But do you think those are like the 3 or 4 key elements that you should basically pay attention to, at least for the first 6 months, 1 year, while you streamline things?
Absolutely. Fonts and colors are the things to be focusing on, especially if you're at the beginning, because they can tell that story of your business, and they can make you stand out and make people attracted to you as well. And it's getting that balance of how you feel a color represents your personality of who you are, as well as what's going to be attractive to your
audience
as well, and your audience. So it's thinking about that, and it is trying to think about not doing the same as everyone else. One of my things is the kind of the pale pink, gold and gray kind of female businesses. It's like, I'm sure they resonate with that. They're the colors that they attracted to and they like, and all those things. So all those things I was saying about what colors do you feel are you and all that kind of stuff, they'll probably be going, yeah, they are. But how many businesses uses that color palette and those font palettes, similar sorts of fonts? They are everywhere, aren't they? And they're so you're not going to be standing out, and people aren't going to necessarily recognize you and seeing your things. If they were to see them anywhere, they're not going to recognize them. So it is thinking about, okay, how can I do these things a little bit differently as well? If everyone in my sector is all using pale pink, then maybe I won't use pale pink. Or actually everyone in my sector uses gray, or they all use blue, or then maybe you switch it and use a different color. Just so you kind of stand out and that you're seen as different. So it is thinking about that, and it's kind of getting all these elements together, but it's starting off in that point, and kind of getting that feeling of, say, does this represent me? Does this go with the message? Does this go with those things that make me different? Whether that's your values of your business as well. Do they all kind of align? Does it all work? And it's thinking about, and same with fonts as well, using really swirly fonts or really fun fonts. You can say so much with colors and fonts that people pick up.
I actually have a fun experiment to do here, and I know we haven't spoken about this before, Amy, but I would love to just showcase your website at this point in time.
Okay.
Because and strictly from the point of view of that, I actually loved it when I saw it, and I'm sure our audience would as well. The only other example that I could think of in terms of like visual identity that I absolutely loved was Vanessa Lau. Right, she's this creator on YouTube who's extremely popular. She's actually one of the leading creators on YouTube right now, and she has this color palette and brand design that is so in tune with who she is, and at the same time it's so consistent across the board, across whatever it is that she does, that it almost becomes unanimous with how she wants to be known. Right. And I mean, I can immediately tell what anyone would be thinking about when they look at her brand, right? So I actually got a very similar feeling when I looked at your brand and your website, which is why I wanted to just quickly show people that. Okay, so here it comes. Let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So I see that something's changed here. But first things first, guys, this is where you can actually find out more about Amy. She's coming up with a 14-day challenge as well. So, sorry, a 4-day challenge as well. Yeah, and you can basically take that. I know I have spent enough amount of time here on her website, just enjoying the experience of how she's put all of this together. Right. But Amy, quickly, let's actually go through the exact 3 things, right? Let's take, can you give me specific instances of messaging that was tailor-made for your audience? Then we'll also look at the font and the color.
Okay. Yeah. Didn't know I was going to be the example. So in terms of fonts and colors, I have a color palette that I use pink and yellow and black, and that's about it, really. I might use a lighter pink or a white, or just to kind of have that like just a different, so it's not all really bright colors. You need to have a balance of really bright colors, bold colors, and also lighter palettes to kind of more neutral kind of palettes. But in terms of that pink and yellow, that's the colors, pink and yellow. In terms of my fonts, so so you don't need to have a big massive color palette with loads and loads of different colors. Just keep things really, really simple. In terms of fonts, I have 2 fonts as well. Keep things really, really simple. I have the kind of brush strokey one that have as like headings, and I just have another one that I use for all other sorts of writing that I mix between normal writing and all capitals. I don't know anything, when it's just a capital at the beginning of a sentence.
Got it.
So in terms of that, in terms of my messaging, so I talk about standing out. I talk about being different. I talk about becoming that go-to person. I use words, so I not make up some words, but I have my own phrases, which it's interesting as well, and that we haven't really spoken about tone of voice, but I use, say, certain language, and which people do pick up on, and people back to me. So like A-list client is one of them. But yeah, so those are the key things. To say it's kind of the standing out, the being that go-to person, messages are clear. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So I'll tell you my favorite part of the website, right? And just in terms of messaging, because obviously everything else does come along really well. It just also goes very strongly with your personality and who you are, right? And there is an affable air about this entire website, which immediately kind of makes people comfortable with the idea of reaching out to you. They feel like you are approachable, and they would be. I mean, they would basically be able to trust you to help them, right? But what I absolutely loved was the messaging here, which and there are two sentences that I feel are so direct and so simple, and yet they kind of touch touch the exact pain point there, and kind of make them want to come and talk to you, which is that, do you start to feel a tad panicked and may even let out a bit of an audible sigh when someone asks you what you do, right? You can't face trying to explain it again. That's so relatable, I think, for most people, right? And especially when the problem that you are trying to help them with. I think this is a situation that pretty much everyone would be in at some point in time, right? Similarly, do you worry you're losing out to your competitors who, quite frankly, are not even as good as you? Again, super direct. And at the same time, this is again something that a lot of a lot of businesses feel, wherein they are actually offering a wider array of services, and they're trying, they actually have more to offer. But even then, there are other smaller competitors who are basically eating into their pie, and more often than not, they end up becoming the dominant player, right? And I have worked for brands like that. And in fact, because we're talking about niching down, and I'm just going to come back to you from the website, because we are talking about this. One of my first job was with this company, and I'd basically gotten through at two places, and I remember picking one over the other, just simply by the virtue of the fact that they were a lot more focused on one segment of the market. They were both digital marketing agencies, but one of them just catered to restaurants, right? And I love the fact that that was the case, because I felt like it would be a lot more easier for me to actually even move the needle or solve problems there, because it's just still one particular audience segment, right? So you can imagine the impact that decisions like these kind of have in the longer run. But yeah, I know you were totally not prepared to go through your website as an example, but I sure as had a good amount of fun on that. But yeah, I mean, I had to show people that, because I think that was one of the most recent examples of where I felt that the brand is so unanimous. The brand is so synonymous with the person that the brand is associated with, right? And it just comes out beautifully well. And that's why I wanted to get you on board, because I thought that, okay, this is super relevant to our audience and in the given time. And if someone has to speak about it, I'd want someone to come over on board, who actually does preach what she would, who does practice what she's going to preach here. And yeah, I mean, I'm so glad that we ran through that example. But I think we've broadly covered most of the points that we wanted to. I'm just quickly
Yeah.
going to run through the comments and see if we have any questions here.
Yeah, we've
So
spoken about a lot today.
yeah. So
Quite
Sandy
like.
talked about how she loves the bright, fun colors. I couldn't agree more. Pyle, who's from my team, says that she loves the color palette and font styles. I again, I totally agree. I don't think I mean, the overall combination couldn't have been better, right? Okay, Sandy has a question here. She's saying that I have niched down to DIYs, how to crafts, woodworking. Is that niche down enough, or is that too much? I love all crafts and art. I think that's a fairly good niche to start with, because it's not really so much of a niche as much as so much of a use case, really, wherein she's very specifically focusing on one category, which is DIYs, how to crafts, woodworking, right? She can actually go more narrow if she wants to at a later point in time, where she realizes that her videos on woodworking are not working as well as her videos on something else,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, your thoughts, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if it's working for you and it at the moment, then that's good. And say it might be that in time, as you were saying, you might want to ditch one of them or focus on a certain one more. It might be that, yeah, the crafts is where you really want to go for, woodworking or whatever. That's something you can do. And that's why it's important to look what's happening in your business and see what's working and doing more of that thing. So yeah, doubling down on that thing that's working. So yeah, I think that's without knowing more about what you do, and you say the fact that you love all crafts and arts, I think if you've already got a little sector there, there's no reason to open it up unless you kind of felt that that other people also had the same problem. But I think what you've got there, and I say it's things you can focus on and tweak as you go along as well.
Got it. So we've got a question from Judy here, who wants to know, how did Amy get to the point of deciding brand colors? Did you have help? Now this is a very interesting question, because this is something that I'd also love to know.
I did it myself, so I didn't have any help with it. But how I came about it, so I had a whole different color palette before, and it wasn't me at all. It was very serious. I was going for kind of a French Breton kind of feel with the blue navies, the reds, the whites, and it just didn't really work. And I thought, it's not really me. I'm here kind of like a bit more high, and the colors were a bit more serious. And I just thought, I'm so drawn. It's funny because I kind of forget that one of my main colors is pink. You know, especially when I say about the pink kind of girly brands. But I really love like really bright, like neon colors, and they were kind of as close as I could kind of get to neon colors, really. But yeah, I am really attracted to the pinks, and it just really worked. And I think I can't even think of how it actually came about. Maybe I was just playing around, or things always seem to come back to that really, really, those kind of bright colors. So sorry, it's not more of an interesting story, really. It was just that I felt they were me, and they were colors that I like. You know, that's a way that you can think of colors as well. You know, what colors are you attracted to? Like what, you know, if you had to choose a front, you know, a color of, you know, like a diary, you know, if you had 4 different colors of diaries, what color would you choose? And, you know, what colors are you attracted to? If there was, say, you have a range of colors of things to pick, what color would you pick? If you had mugs, like what color mug would you go for? And, you know, just things like that. And that's an element to think about, like what colors are you drawn to? And I'm very much drawn to I love my colors. It's a pleasure when I have to create stuff, and I've not got bored with them at all, or wanting to add new colors or anything. So yeah, that's how.
So Judy has another question here, wherein she's saying, is the font close to your own handwriting?
Probably not.
No,
it was just one I saw that was a little bit different. I think I got that font from, I can't remember the name of it now. That creative, I can't think of the name off the top of my head. There's a whole website that you buy fonts and things, and I'm sure I got it from there. It's not one that's on Canva or on.
That's okay. So to answer that question, Judy, I don't necessarily feel that. I get why you could feel that way, but you've got some really, really interesting fonts that you'll get online that kind of bring out your personality. Like, for example, that font is not something that I would specifically use, but I'd use the other regular font that you use. Right. That's something that appeals to me a lot more, but so that's exactly where we are coming from, right? It's a mix and match of what your audience will relate to, and that can be derived from, like, there are actually very easy ways for you to do that. You can actually go online and look at the influencers and the content pages that they follow, and then figure out what is the kind of visual style that they are actually responding to, right? And then just add a dash of your own flavor and figure out what you would love to create, and that's about it. That's as simple as it can get for you to figure out your color palette and your fonts and things like that. But Amy, this was super fun. I know we're slightly over an hour, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this because this is, as I was telling you, this is something that is really close to my heart, and it is something that I've been thinking a lot about, primarily by the virtue of the fact that I've started going live a lot more frequently now, right? And we were just discussing about how I just stick to the color black because that, I feel the most comfortable in it, and it's just my thing when it comes to going live or just meeting people in general, right? But yeah, I mean, this has been super valuable. I think I have a lot to take away from this, and I'm hoping everyone who did tune in also did have a lot to just learn from this overall live stream. But thanks a lot, Amy, for coming on the show and for talking to us about all of this.
Thank you for
I
having
hope
me.
you've had fun.
Yeah, no, it's been great. No, thank you very much for having me.
Epic, epic. So, guys, for everyone who is watching us live, Amy is on the community. She will be available to answer questions and things like that. So you can feel free to tag her if you have a situation, if you're stuck with a roadblock, from a branding perspective or from a niching down perspective. Just tag her, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help. I'd be happy to help. So you can always feel free to tag us. And we've got some really good master classes that we have lined up for next week as well, right? So they'll kick in from Tuesday. We'll have the schedule up most probably by Saturday morning, by Saturday afternoon. So you should be able to plan your next week's schedule, and we'd love for you to join us for our next week's classes as well. All right. With that, Amy, thanks a lot again for coming on the show. And just stick around for a bit while I say goodbye to everyone else. And then I'll just come talk to you. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, okay, guys. Judy, Sandy, thanks a lot for joining in. We love it when you join us on our live streams. And yeah, I'm going to see you soon on the coming Tuesday, where we'll have another episode of Grow with InVideo. Until then, see you. Have fun.